Some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership. And I realized that some of the things that myself and my female counterparts were priding ourselves on, being really, really well educated, being very well accomplished, being pretty, but like pretty in a way that society deems is particularly valuable, because we know there's actual pretty and then there's kind of marketability, if you.
The bottom line is this, okay? Don't nobody wants to be unhappy. Don't nobody want to be by themselves, okay? So a lot of you women that come up here with this independent bull and say it's all a cap. I'm gonna give y'all women some damn good advice, okay? Do not friend women with this whole independent live, laugh, love bullshit, okay? Because they will keep you down and they will keep you single. They will keep you unhappy in their space, especially PhD hoes. These PhD women and these women with these degrees are the most miserable women known to man, no lie. And the reason why I say that, because a lot of women with that mindset and a lot of women, you know, with degrees and everything like that, most of them are fat and out of shape, and most of them are just all around unhappy. They're unhappy with them lives. They're mad because they did all those years in college and they, you know, then put all this time into being successful, and the whole time men don't want them. And the reason why men don't want y'all PhD hoes is because y'all feel like y'all are entitled and y'all are super cocky for nothing. That's what it's about. The bottom line is this, okay? Everybody wants somebody. So this whole gender war between black women and black men, this has got to stop. Because some of the rules that y'all be having up here on social media does not apply to real life. Like, let's keep it real. Y'all cannot be serious. Y'all are making dating out here extremely hard and extremely difficult for nothing. When a man takes a woman out on a date, why do you expect for him to spend all this money on this expensive restaurant and he barely even know you? You might be a psychotic serial killer. You might do some crazy shit. No.
Welcome back to the channel, and you see what's on the screen, so let's get to it. So right now, you know, and I know if you've been tracking with me for a while, you know I talk a lot about uber successful women, right? And even though I used Ebony K. Williams, and she is one of these uber successful women, she's really not the main focus of what we're going to talk about today. We're mainly going to be talking about educated black women, all right? Because see, they are a little bit different than the uber successful black women. Like, really, when you start to talk about the Ebony K. Williams type of people, you're really talking about heavy duty A-type of personalities. On this channel, I also refer to them as heavy duty instinct driven types of people, right? And I tell you all the time that I am instinct driven. And most of the people on YouTube are instinct driven. In fact, most of the people that you see on any kind of media are instinct driven, especially if you see those people over and over and over again, right? Because it takes a certain type of person to put themselves out there and be okay with receiving criticism. All right. So somebody really has to believe in themselves in order to do that. And actually, most people do not line up with that. So when we start to talk about educated black women, all right, these aren't necessarily women who are A-types, who are instinct driven, who are walking in their masculine. These are actually a totally different group of women. But a lot of times they get looped in for various reasons, right? So first, like I said, we really kind of have to understand what's going on when we start to talk about educated black women. So when a lot of people try to do their stats, they love to talk about the fact that there's generally 2 black women that will go to college for every 1 black male. All right. And again, I'm not sure exactly what those stats are. I will pop them up, so that you can take a look at them because I do have a chart for that. And even when you start to look at white women or women of other races, you do see that most of the time, more women actually go into education, as far as stay in education longer than men do. And there's a lot of reasons for this. But one of the main ones I believe, and this is just my belief, is that I believe a lot of women truly believe that education is their key to financial success. See, the way that, our world works in the United States is we have this system, okay, put together. And this system is basically just saying that even though you might have person A who might really love their job, who might be really good at doing whatever their job does. Let's say they're helping people, or we just say they're helping people as a generic. So they're out here and they're helping people. And this person loves their job and they've been doing it for, 10 years. All right. And through this job, whatever it is, they're making $75,000 a year. And then we have person B. They don't even really like their job. Okay, but they're also helping people. They're doing the exact same job as person A, but they don't even really like this job. They're not even really that good at it. But the way that our world in the United States works is that if person A has, let's say, a bachelor's degree, and then person B has maybe 2 master's degrees or even a PhD, then person B might be making $100,000 a year while person A is making $75,000 a year. Because this country has a really weird rewarding system. And it does not always reward people just because they're good at their job. Many times, what people are doing in our society is they're looking for another standard of measurement that is outside of the job itself to figure out whether or not somebody is worth, their dollars, so to speak. So at that particular point, what you end up with is these people in group B that are basically trying to work the system so that they can make as much money as they possibly can, even though they may or may not like their job. Because I'm not necessarily saying that person B doesn't like their job, right? So that is really a lot of what's going on. So a lot of these Black women that are pushing education, they're really pushing it, again, to go back to the original narrative of their mothers or women in their family or even their fathers sometimes telling them and encouraging them not to lean on anyone but themselves. And then that fueled with the whole American dream of getting more money, more stuff, and all this other kind of stuff leads them down this path of money searching. And many women, like I said, they haven't really been taught the hustle and the grind that almost all men are taught. I mean, I don't give a doggone toot if a man is basically born in a millionaire type of society. There is something where people generally kind of teach their sons a little bit more hustle. Now, I do believe that it's not taught as much these days as it used to be, and I'll admit to that. But, for argument's sake, I'm hoping that you can kind of understand. So I believe that a lot of women are using this information in order to push themselves forward, in order to make sure that they're where they need to be, right? So that is one of the main reasons why I think a lot of these women are going into these higher levels of education at all times anyway. Once you go into that group, you actually run into lots of different types of women, right? And then this subset of women that are in there, they're honestly just like the women in the world, right? So you have women that come from lots of different backgrounds. They can come from a single mom background. They can come from a hybrid where maybe they had their dad around them until they were like 12 or 13, and then their parents got a divorce, and now, they're living with mom, but they still have connection with dad. They might have been a situation where it's 100% single mom, but they might have, known their dad and been very close to their dad and maybe spent the summers with their dad. Or they might have come from a 2-parent household and lived under that household, and then their parents are still married today. You have all these various groups of women that are going into higher levels of education. And one of the things that people generally don't talk about is, again, all of these various groups. Some of you that have been, hanging out with me for a while may know that, I went to a HBCU, I went to Tuskegee University. And I can tell you, from my experience of being out there, I can't talk for every single college, I can't talk for every single person. But what I can tell you is that a good portion of the people that were there were from two-parent households. And the women that were from single-parent households and the guys, the men that were there from single-parent households, there was a stark difference in the way that we moved around the campus. We thought differently, we moved differently, we talked differently. And even when you start to talk about people from different countries or people, from different states, because you might not understand that Tuskegee is way down in Alabama, right outside of Montgomery, Alabama. But I'm just going to be real. We have people from literally all over the world. All right. And that is how most HBCUs are. People think that they're not diverse, but again, these are people that know nothing about HBCUs. So we have people from all over the world. And again, each person was coming in with their own dynamic. And that's really important to start with, because until you really deal with that, you can't really talk about anything else. See, I appreciate, like I say, Ebony K. Williams, and then the lady that was, in the car that was talking about, the PhD H's, for sake of word on this particular channel. And when they're talking about it, again, they're looking at it from their various points of view. When you start to talk about somebody, like I said, that's uber successful, like a Ebony K. Williams, even though she's educated, her concept is that there's not enough black men at that level. But the problem with Ebony, and I've talked about this in another video recently, is that Ebony still leans into a very masculine energy. She doesn't see it in herself. She sees that she is a beautiful woman that is educated, that makes this money. And so she doesn't understand why a man at her level, as she sees it, because she's looking at men that make about the same amount of money that she does and above. Okay, she doesn't understand why a man at her level would want her. Now, again, I could go into a whole nother video just talking about that. But again, that would take a long time. But for sake of this argument, so we can kind of move on, men at her level can date any woman they want. And they're not going to basically date a woman that they basically got to fight with. All right. And Ebony just has a little bit more of a fight in her. She doesn't have, that energy of peace. Right. So that is that uber successful level. So then, like I said, you jump it all the way down to just a level of a normal, we'll just say, black woman that's educated. And then she basically comes from a good, family, i.e., two parents, blah, blah, blah. That woman more than likely is married. And you probably don't see her in these social media spaces unless she's just very curious. All right. And or if she just decided to listen to the rhetoric out here and put her marriage on hold. All right. Because you do have women that do that. They will basically try to put their marriage on hold until they're in their, early 30s or whatever it is, instead of recognizing that if you got a really good man right there, just go ahead and snag him up, which is what a lot of women did at Tuskegee. Like the closer we got to senior year, the more those women were trying to lock a dude down. Okay, because many of them understood that their best chance, to find a person was in college. And a lot of their parents actually taught them that, which again is one of the things that I'm constantly telling you all, that college in the beginnings, it wasn't really about this education thing that many people think it's about. A lot of it was about networking. And some of it was networking to get your person, right? Okay, so once you get beyond that, now you start to go into, again, this whole thing about like single energy, right? Single energy that might come from a single mom or just, like I say, even if they come from a two-parent household, the woman just has single energy on her. Now, again, right now we're talking about women, not necessarily talking about men. So single energy is single energy. And I've always told you guys, your energy goes before you. So like at Tuskegee, there were plenty of men that were going to be six-figure guys, that were going to, build really great families, that, some of them were Christian, some of them weren't Christian. Some of them were, what we call, lukewarm Christian. They go to church, but they're not really, on fire for Jesus. All right. So you had a lot of different variations. And in my experience, and again, this is more of a my experience type of video, but in my experience, what I noticed was a lot of the women that came with that single energy did not seek out men that would be a marriage partner. They were still seeking out men in the same way they would have sought men out if they were in the club. And this is one of the things that I'm always saying, which is who you are picking. Because at Tuskegee, unlike a lot of colleges, there were actually more men there than there were women. So no woman who went to Tuskegee during the time that I was there can literally say there weren't enough men. There were more than enough men, and almost every single man was in an engineering field. All right. And most engineers, architects, and all the other kind of stuff at that particular moment in time would have come out making between 60 to 100 grand. All right. Especially within 5 years, they probably would have been making six figures. Right. So again, what's happening is these women are bypassing men that they could have talked to, generally based off their sexual energy, because they don't have sexual energy with a guy who comes from a certain background. All right. Or maybe that guy did not want to talk to them because the woman came from a certain background. All right. Now, once you put all of that together, you end up, like I say, in situations where now these women get out of college. Now they're in a situation where they might be going up further and further, like the one lady said, talking about going towards PhD or whatever it is, or like I say, double master's degrees or whatever. And as they make more money, as we've talked about before, women generally, this is most women, period. I haven't seen too many women that don't do this, is they tend to date men at their level and above. Most women don't like to look down. And this is another quick aside for the men that are watching. This is why you never put a woman on a pedestal. Because even though it might not be financial, women don't like looking down. Okay? So if they look down at you, even in the energy that you're giving them, more than likely they're not going to be sexually attracted to you. Okay? That's just a little bit of an aside. So most of the time, women are looking for a man, like I said, at their level and above, and it's really in almost everything. And this makes it very difficult for a lot of women the higher they go. And the reason why really has very little to do, honestly, with their education per se, but it has more to do with the way that they see the world. All right? And because they see the world, through that lens of get like me, be on my energy. And you actually see a lot of women talking like that, be with my energy, get like me, have my energy type of thing. Okay, what you end up with, again, is a situation where all these women, they can't find men, because now when they are actually dealing with men, those men that they're dealing with become more picky because they can. If this makes sense. So when a woman, like I said, makes $100,000 a year, and she wants to date men that make $100,000 a year and above, she is now limited to approximately 15% of the male population in the United States. That does not, it doesn't matter if they're white, doesn't matter if they're black, doesn't matter what. That's why when people are always encouraging black women to date outside of their race, or even successful women or educated women to date outside of their race, I'm always kind of like laughing, because it doesn't really matter. Okay? There's plenty of people in your race that will work, and you're just not finding them because of your sexual energy. Okay, that's really what it's about. But even once you get beyond that, these men are not working in the same dating pool, because you got to realize it's two totally different dating pools. A really great way to see this is, imagine, the average pool, like the average Olympic size pool, that you might see, in some community. And you have a 3 feet and you have a 10 feet. All right. And we'll say that, it slowly goes from 3 feet to 10 feet. Right. And in the 10 feet area, guess what? There's more water, right? There's technically more water because it's deeper. So we do understand that there's more water in the 10-foot area than in the 3 feet area. All right. You can stand up in the 3 feet, but there's more water in the 10 feet. So what happens is, as women make more money, as they get more status, as they get more power, they start to move from the 10 feet towards the 3 feet. And a lot of them settle about 3.5 feet, okay, or maybe 4 feet. So now they've got 4 feet to 3 feet, that little area to talk to men. Maybe they might talk to somebody back at the 5 foot, but they're going to basically be in that range. Meanwhile, a man that makes, like I say, $100,000 a year can talk to women from that 3.5 foot mark, because he can't talk to the woman all the way at 3 feet, because those women like making $1 million. So he can't talk to them. But he can talk to all the women from 3.5 feet all the way to 10 feet, because all those women will talk to him. If, as long as he can work their sexual energy, their sexual nature, and he can get in understanding that, he's able to talk to them. Now, if he cannot talk to them, it's more than likely he's not matching their sexual energy. And because he doesn't match their sexual energy, they kind of might think, I'm not feeling you. And so because of that, the woman might reject him. And this happens to a lot of men that make, 6 figures. But again, a lot of those men figure it out. They do figure it out with time. Okay. And this is one of those things that, is one of the issues that I see with, again, the differences between the sexes, is that men, when they get information, they're trying to take that information, internalize it, and then figure it out. Like they're literally looking, what is the solution? What do I have to do in order to win? But I find that a lot of women, when they're given the solution, they don't always enjoy the solution. And so many times they'll seek for another solution and another solution and another solution, constantly going from person to person in order to try to find solutions. And one of the problems that I honestly have when it comes to a lot of the dating coaches for women is that a lot of those men, especially the men, a lot of them know the answer. They truly do know the answer. But what they do is they lean into the fantasy, okay, of the woman, or what they perceive is the fantasy of most women, so that they can make money. Okay? Because many of them know. But what they do is they give very generic information, with the core element being, okay, I am not going to interrupt the concept of her going after this 6 foot tall man that makes 6 figures and that is sexually viable. So instead of going against that, I am going to do things like how to get the man of your dreams, how to work, through and find really great places to meet men. They never talk about, okay, how to really work and navigate in the dating market, what the woman might have to give up, what the woman might have to change. And if they do talk about that, they talk about that very rarely. But what they try to lean on, okay, little small places you can go, other things. It's never a real change for the woman, right? And see, that's really what a lot of the other spaces are really saying, is that no matter whether you're a man or a woman, you're generally going to have to make a change, because if you don't make the change, then it's like the Bible says, you're basically a dog returning to your vomit, right? And that's one of the main reasons why I've heard from so many people, especially, some of the women that follow me, is that they say what I teach is hard. And it's hard because I'm asking the person to change. You know, you see how this is working. So let's get back to the main thing about education. It's not education that turns a woman bad or good or whatever. It's not. I have dated, I think, 2 PhDs and 1 doctor. Okay. And I found that both PhDs were some of the sweetest women in the world. They were absolutely sweet. Okay. But I will say that one of the PhDs did not like the fact that I was coming in with a little bit more masculine energy. And I was basically saying that, hey, if we go forward, I am the leader. Okay. And I am the husband. I cover you. And she didn't like that. Okay. Because she had so many successes and all this other kind of stuff. And so she wanted what she called 50-50, which again is a little bit different than what some people are saying is 50-50 now. She was basically saying 50-50 in power, not necessarily in, 50-50 for the household, items, right? So I did not agree with that. I told her that's not how I was raised. That's not how I believe. I was like, I believe that the man leads his family. I was like, I'm a servant leader. You have nothing to worry about. But that just didn't sit really well with her. And so she moved on. But the point I'm trying to make is that would have happened whether or not she was educated or not. It really had little to do with her education. It had a little bit more to do with her money, perhaps, right? Because when you're dealing with sometimes, and I've seen a lot of videos that talk about this, where a lot of women feel, okay, and this is their emotions on this, and this is not every woman, but there are a lot of women, they feel as though when they get financially empowered, they no longer have to settle for a situation in marriage or in a relationship that they don't want. So basically what they're saying is a woman runs into a guy that's just okay. He's just an okay guy. He's okay in attractiveness. He's okay in how he treats her, blah, blah, blah. But this man makes $150,000 a year. So the woman says, okay, I'll put up with it. Versus, a woman that makes $150,000 a year herself. And now, the belief is I can get better quality men. So I can get the man that instead of he's just average, I can get the man that's actually really great. But see, the problem with this is an incorrect teaching because it doesn't work that way for women. Women's value when it comes to dating has very little to do with how much money she makes. It's not so much education, it's more money. As they lean into that, it puts them in a situation where now it becomes very confusing. It's just kind of like what Ebony is going through. Because Ebony K. Williams, just like Oprah, Winfrey, just like Gail, just like I say, Sandra Bullock, I put her picture up a couple of times. All these women, if they were making $50,000 a year or $75,000 a year, all of them would be married. All of them would have had 2 or 3 babies, and all of them would not have their stress. It's not about the fact that these women can't get nobody. The problem is, like I said, it's all about, the fact of their money. It's that money side of it that makes them want what they think is a higher quality man. But they don't understand that the more money a woman has, the more she goes to the shallow end of the pool. And she's now has fewer and fewer men to actually choose. Like you look at some of the people, like I look at like Haley Bailey and her sister, right? And recently, both of them, I think, came out in the fact that they had got pregnant, they had kids, by dudes that I was even looking at like, why did you do that? I was like, both of you seem like such a different type of woman. I mean, maybe that's their sexual energy. I don't know. But I have been surprised in the past with, Black actresses and Black singers that you think are a little bit more, on one side of the fence or whatever, and they end up, with a certain type of dude. And you'd be like, why you end up with him, of all the people? But a lot of times they're not necessarily looking 100% at the personality of the guy. I believe a lot of it has to do with money. I'm just gonna be real. A lot of it has to do with money. And so as they start to lean into that money side, they end up, because like I said, at that, if you're just looking at a money level, if you're talking about a dude that's a Pookie can be a millionaire. All right. And see, we don't think like that, because most of the time when we assume that you have somebody that's like a Pookie mindset, we're basically saying that, they are the train that hasn't left the station. They aren't doing anything with their life. But really, true Pookie energy is really more about parenting. Does he want to be a dad? Will he take care of the woman? Okay. Is he, hood in it? Or he could be, high value man in it, but it's really the same thing. Because it's like I said, you have high value men out here, okay, that will do you just like Pookie. That's why I always say it's really more about a woman's sexual energy than it is anything else. Because there are plenty of men out here that make 6 figures, 7 figures, that wear suits every day, okay, that speak well, that are, high educated, and they ain't trying to take care of your babies. They ain't trying to take care of you. The only thing they're trying to do is hit it and quit it. And Pookie, and like I say, the high value man, the only difference between the two is that the high value man is wearing a condom. That's really the difference. Or he got a vasectomy. Okay. But Pookie is at the $1 million level too. And if a woman is attracted to that and she leads herself into that, then she has the same exact results as a woman that's making 40 grand. Ain't no difference. Okay. And that's why I'm always talking about is who you're choosing. Okay. Because there are plenty of men who look like Pookie at all levels who want to be married. There are men out there that are like that. And then there are men who look and feel like the high value man who want to be married at all levels. So there's something going on where women are basically saying, I don't want the guy who would marry me. And that's why I always say that there's a little bit of inner toxicity that has to go on when a woman puts herself in that situation. So when we start to talk about educated Black women and educated Black women that have PhDs or high-level degrees, it has very little to do with their direct education. It has more to do with who they are as a person. Okay? And what type of relationship they actually want to have. And again, it's like I've said before, when I have run into those women, and like I told you, I've dated a doctor and 2 PhDs. And when I generally run into those women generally do a lot more to try to talk to me. Okay, especially if they come from a certain background, i.e. 2-parent type of background. They generally do a little bit more work, to try to be around me, to talk to me. They give a little bit more effort on the dates, blah, blah, blah. Because they're saying, wow, that's kind of what they've been looking for. But again, some of them come in with that concern about their money, their status, their achievements. And that is always going to be a problem because your achievements, your status cannot come above the family. Nothing can come above the family. It always has to be God first, your spouse next, your children next, and the rest of your family and friends after that. And anything that is not in that order is incorrect. And so for me, when those women are starting to say, well, hey, I don't want to do this and I don't want to line up with that, then I'm like, okay, I'm gone. Because, we're out of order in this, right? So when we're dealing with education, I just wanted to go ahead and make a video about it, directly talking 100% about the educational piece, because again, I think a lot of people kind of get confused between the successful woman and the education piece. And education really doesn't matter as much. It's just like when I talk about a lot of nurses. A lot of nurses walk with a lot of heart energy. When I talk on this channel about heart energy. And a lot of nurses, even though right now in our economy, many of them could be making well over $200,000 a year. And a lot of those nurses want to be submitted to a man, i.e., they want the man to lead them. They're not trying to lead. They're not trying to take over the world. They're not trying to go up the mountain. It's just that at this point in life, they're just making money. They're just at a point where that particular job, is sought after. They need nurses. So they're willing to spend almost anything, to get a nurse right now. And because of that, those women are making money. But that money has nothing to do with their heart. And that's why I'm always telling you all, you have to look at the personality type. Okay, much more so than anything else. Because instinct-driven women are their own breed. Like I said, you might call them masculine women. You might call them A-types. No matter what you call them, it's really, they're their own thing. And while I will say that women generally want to go up and they don't want anybody at their level, and I agree to that, even with the heart types, I agree with that. But heart types are going to be more willing, to basically work it out because that's not their energy anyway. They kind of looked up into that position if they're like a nurse. So you have to kind of see it like that. It's almost, the best way to describe it is like if you have a heart type woman and this particular woman is a school teacher, right? And she's been teaching school, her whole life, and she enjoys that. Maybe she's been in there for 5 years, and she's just the sweetest woman that you've ever met, right? She's sweet like sugar. And then her and 7 of the other teachers at her school, every time the Powerball or whatever gets over $1 billion, they put in, right? And you're dating her, one of the guys, following, you're dating her, and she wins the Powerball. So now they got basically $1 billion that they're going to separate over 8 or 9 women or whatever it is. And so now she's walking away with $100 million. That woman is not going to leave you. That woman is going to treat you the exact same as she always has, as long as you have treated her well and that her heart is linked to you. Now, a thinking woman will get confused about what she needs to do. And she might, get in her head and she might try to go to friends for advice, right? But if she needs to go to married friends, if she's just dating you, she needs to go to married friends and not to her single friends. And then an instinct-driven woman, she's going to drop you. It's over. It's done. Because at that point, she don't need you no more. And she believes that now with this money, she can actually get a better man, than you. And it doesn't matter how good you were. You could be 6'4", you could be rippling with muscles, you could be dark-skinned, you could be all of that. But she'll be like, well, I wanted all that, plus I wanted him to have hair. And you'll be like, man, that's the only thing I ain't got. I'm just bald, but I got everything else. Well, I want a man with hair, and maybe he could be 2 years younger. And I'm not saying all of them are like that. I am making a joke, but I'm not saying all of them are like that. But what I am saying is that's the difference, when we start to talk about personality. So again, when you're looking at people that are in this dating pool, you kind of have to look at their personality. You kind of have to look at how much money. You have to look at their socioeconomic background. You have to look at what they want out of life. And you have to put all those pieces together, in order to really kind of figure it out. That's why you can't really put people in one bucket and say, oh, all of y'all in that bucket are bad, because it really doesn't work that way. And I know it can be a little bit confusing, to talk about it, but, I try to break them up into different videos so we can really talk specifically, sometimes just to one particular issue. Anyway, hope this helped. Please like, please subscribe. Remember, there's a lot of really great things in that description, so go check those out. And I will see you all in the very next video.